Hi, Terry Vanover here. It's so good to be with you today. I'm so excited to speak with you. So, the first topic that I want to address today is conflict styles and why you may have felt disrespected in your marriage. The Gottman Institute has done a lot of research on couples and conflict and needs of partners in marriages. And there's been some really interesting research that's come out of it that we can learn so that we don't repeat our mistakes, right? When we've been through divorce, perhaps you felt really disrespected in the marriage and you really could never quite communicate well. And this is an issue that's come up for me personally too. So I really understand how this can affect marriages. And so I love that there are some real tools and real guidance for, communicating more effectively through your relationships. And the first key to this is becoming aware, is knowing your own conflict style and knowing your partner's conflict style. Because unless you have that information, you'll view the conversations as disrespectful, you'll become resentful. And trust me, that resentment is the number one relationship killer. I see it with so many people. So much of the work that I do around those that are in relationships is around dissolving the resentment because we can't build trust if there's a wall of resentment there. And so many people come and get help from me and from other professionals, relationship professionals, by the time it's too late. And so the earlier you see the signs, the earlier you start to recognize the symptoms in a relationship, and the more you work on it early, the better the outcome for the relationship will be. So I want to tell you what the four big, relationship red flags are when it comes to conflict styles. The first one is stonewalling, and that's a partner who, shuts down, doesn't talk, ignores, really, really, destructive form of communication when there's a conflict. The second one is critical. Now, someone who's critical, now I'll raise my hand on this one because this tends to be me, I'll be honest, right? I've had to work really hard at letting that, when that critical voice comes out at my partner, reining that back in. So it's things like, you never do this for me, or it's you're kind of tearing the other person down. In a critical way when you really want to request something. So it's kind of like a complaint versus a request. And that's one of the tools I give my clients is when you're going to your partner, make it a request versus a complaint. Because when we go into that complaint, your partner will see that as criticism, such as, why can't you ever do this for me? Or, when you're complaining, it's not going to be received as well. So it's really important that you make a request. I really like it if you would text me during the day. Like so much better than complaining about something or criticizing someone that they didn't do it. So the other thing that is a conflict, killer, or I should say it produces more conflict, is defensiveness. This one, whew, it's a hard one because, and it doesn't sound that bad, but defensive people tend to invalidate their partner, and then their partner doesn't feel heard. And then someone like me who's in that critical category, I feel like I've got to complain even more, criticize even more to get my way. So it leads to even more defensiveness. So defensive partners tend to be people who say, I was going to do it, but I was so busy at work, I didn't do it. So they tend to defend, their viewpoint rather than being really open and listening to their partner and saying, okay, I hear you wanted me to text you. I can try to do that. And just validating their partners, they tend to defend, right? So they tend to just say, well, I was going to, but then you made me do this, or they use kind of an excuse. It feels like an excuse to their partner to not acknowledge their feelings. And then, so let's see, we've got stonewalling, which is like shutting down, not communicating at all, ignoring your partner, and defensiveness and criticism. And then the last one is, it's a big one, is contempt, right? So if you're in this contemptuous way of communicating with your partner, you're really tearing them down. I can't believe you did that. You're just so dumb. Or that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's really, and stonewalling and contempt really can shut down the communication. So here's the thing about what those four types of communication have in common, though. It's a sense of protecting oneself, right? I'm feeling hurt that my partner didn't acknowledge my needs, so I lash out by complaining, right? So it's a way of protecting yourself. And when you're in defensiveness, you want to defend your position because you don't want your partner to see that you really don't want to face the fact that maybe you've hurt your partner and you're feeling insecure, so you defend your position. So what all these things have in common, it's it's a way of kind of putting up a wall and protecting yourself. But when you're in a partnership, there has to be trust and there has to be vulnerability between you two. And you have to be willing to look at yourself and say, wow, I'm really communicating my needs in a way that's not being received. Or maybe I'm seeing this defensiveness as a way of not hearing me, but what I'm really need to look at is, wow, he's feeling really insecure. He feels like I'm attacking him. Can I approach this conversation from a different way that my partner can receive? So if we understand our own conflict styles, it can go a long way to building better relationships. And even, especially not even just with an intimate partner, but with your loved ones, a sister or brother. If you recognize, wow, I have a defensive kind of nature and it's a way of protecting myself, but now I see why my sister feels like I never hear her, right? Because she comes to me and she needs something and yet I feel like I have to defend myself against her. Maybe I can see now why she doesn't feel heard, or maybe why she feels like I don't ever listen to her. And so if you can understand what our own conflict styles, again, it's born out of that protective part of ourselves. It just wants to protect ourselves and keep ourselves safe, but it can inadvertently do the very opposite. And people pleasers in particular tend to have the defensive communication style when it comes to conflict. Firstly, they want to avoid conflict, so they try to deflect, right? But it just ends up making the conflict worse in a lot of ways because the person doesn't feel heard or their feelings don't feel validated. So it ends up contributing even more to the conflict. So if you understand your own conflict styles and you do some work around that, and you do some work in the relationship so that there's more trust, there's more openness, there's more listening, and there's more um, vulnerability in the relationship, it will go a long way to getting past some of this conflict, even when it does rear itself. And if you're able to talk about it, it's even better. So, that's what I do in the work that I do is give my clients some tools and strategies and real exercises that you can take away and walk away with and implement into your life that will make a difference, make a change just like that in your life. So if you have the awareness and you have the tools to change how we're approaching situations, how we're inadvertently contributing to conflict or inadvertently contributing to people pleasing, um, or understanding our own triggers, it really goes a long way in building better relationships and feeling better about yourself. Because I feel like once people understand themselves more and understand how maybe unconsciously they're contributing to the things that they're not even aware of, or how they're filtering the messages that they're receiving or the relationships they're in, they really feel empowered to do something about it, and they really feel much more empowered to show up differently in the relationship. I had a client who really had this filter of never feeling heard. And, she was defensive about it. And so the more she felt like she wasn't heard, the more she would speak out and, continue to like want to be heard, want to be heard, want to be heard. And when she worked on this energetically, she learned to listen more. And one strange area that this manifested a lot of positivity in her life was at work. The more she started listening and letting go of the filter of like no one hears me, no one listens to me, and the more she started listening, guess what? The more people listened to her and came to her and wanted to ask her things, and the more she felt heard. So it was a true dynamic that shifted, and she felt like that was like one of the most significant, positive side symptoms that occurred from her working on herself and showing up differently in her professional life and her personal life and in all areas of her life. So, look, if you want to talk about maybe your conflict style, or maybe you're struggling with attracting the same ding dongs over and over, and you want to know, why am I doing this? Why am I continuing to people please? Why can't I just put up some healthy boundaries? Feel free to reach out to me. I'll put the form below and we will set up a time that we can talk about your particular situation and give you the tools and insights that you need to build healthy, happy relationships in the future. So click on the link below, and I'm happy to have a 3 steps to having healthy boundaries conversation with you. All right. I look forward to talking with you next week. If not, put some questions in the group. I'm happy to talk to you soon. All right. Bye bye.